Want to dash, block, and shoot like an expert enforcer? Here are the 11 things we wish we knew before playing SAROS. SAROS is a fast and frenetic game, requiring you to simultaneously dodge multiple enemy attacks and shoot at said enemies all at once. It then adds in a shield mechanic, which allows you to block attacks and absorb blue projectiles to not only refill your shield, but charge up your power weapon, which is crucial for taking out smaller enemies quickly or dealing significant damage to bigger baddies. If you're having a hard time getting into a rhythm between dodging, blocking, and shooting, just do each step progressively. Start out just trying to dodge, then add in the block, and once that combo feels good, add back in the offensive options. There's no rush to completing these levels, so take your time feeling out the mechanics. It'll serve you better for when things get really nutty later into the game. SAROS has a Metroidvania-style 3D map, which is great for making sure you've searched every nook and cranny for upgrades, equipment, and resources. However, it can be immensely useful in combat too. When facing down enemies, you'll be running and dashing around the map, often surrounded by perilous drops that ding your health every time you fall into them. In combat, keep an eye on your minimap for not only enemy placement, but making sure you're not one step away from a frustrating fall. Often in SAROS, you'll enter an arena where a solar cage is dropped, preventing you from leaving that portion of the map until you've dispatched all the enemies in the area. These quote-unquote cage matches will always feature more dangerous enemies than you normally encounter on the run. When in these cages, you might feel compelled to dispatch the smaller foes first in order to ease the load. However, these enemies are the ones that more frequently attack with absorbable blue orbs, and therefore are good to keep around in order for you to more routinely deploy your power weapon, so you should actually leave them for cleanup once you've dispatched the bigger threats. Artifacts in SAROS are temporary modifiers you can find in levels that reset after every run that also alter your resilience, command, and drive stats. However, you are limited in how many you can carry, with only 10 slots at the start of the game, which I didn't realize until I tried to pick up an artifact and was told my inventory was full. You can eventually increase how many artifact slots you have when you start upgrading protagonist Arjun permanently with the armor matrix in between runs, but especially early on, be selective about which artifacts you are picking up. Artifacts aren't the only things that modify how you play. The weapons you pick up will also come with their own alterations, which are listed when choosing a new firearm. However, in order to see what those modifiers do, you'll need to go to the Equipment tab in the touchpad menu, where you can hover over a modifier to read its description. When out of the menus, modifications, both permanent and temporary, will appear in the top left portion of the screen, letting you know what is active and when. When picking up some weapons, they might be accompanied by one or two symbols. This first symbol means the weapon is corrupted, which is also denoted in the weapon's name. Artifacts sometimes come with corruption as well, meaning that the weapon or artifact that you're picking up comes with a negative modifier. The second symbol means that the firearm has auto-hit disabled. Most weapons you pick up, especially early in a run, do not have this symbol, which means when aiming in the general direction of an enemy with them, your shots will magnetize to said foe. However, weapons that have auto-hit disabled require more precise shots. SAROS teaches you to use your melee attack in order to break through the red bubble shields that some enemies deploy. However, your melee attack can do a wealth of damage beyond this crucial shield breaking mechanic, so when dashing around the map dodging enemy attacks, get a few licks in when you can. Sometimes when on a run, you'll come across an item that you don't want right away. The best example of this is Ether, the resource you can pick up to refill your health meter. If at full health, you can pick up the Ether for Lucenite instead, the primary currency used in the armor matrix. However, if you so choose, you can always venture on and then backtrack if need be to pick up that ether after taking some damage. However, know that often in a biome, you'll reach a point where backtracking becomes impossible. So if you do choose to leave something behind for pickup later, know that you won't be able to get too far from it and have it still be an option to return to. Often when at a node that offers up different items, you'll have to choose between two options. If Halcyon is ever an option, take it. Halcyon is the other currency used in the armor matrix for more substantial upgrades, and it is much more sparse than Lucenite. Especially later in the game, Halcyon upgrades can get very expensive, so you're going to want as much of the stuff as you possibly can get your hands on. Later in the game, you'll encounter optional nightmare strands that teleport you to a different location, promising more difficult enemies but also more bountiful rewards. In my experience, the difficulty increase in these areas has been minimal compared to the regular levels, but the rewards make a big difference, with several permanent modifications and large ether deposits awaiting you at the end of them. Plus, they refill your second chance slot if you go down, a mechanic you unlock early in the game that lets you instantly revive after your first death. So in our opinion, Nightmare Strands are always worth doing. After the Ancient Depths, Saros' second major biome, you'll unlock Carcosan modifiers. These are choices you can make in between runs that either alleviate or exacerbate the difficulty of the game. Things that make the game easier have a negative value, and things that make the game harder come with a positive value, requiring you to fall within a -3 to +3 window in order to lock in your choices before venturing into Carcosa. The changes from Carcosan modifiers are dramatic compared to the modifications provided by artifacts that you find on your runs, and you can very easily make the game much easier or harder with even the smallest of alterations. In my personal experience, I was having a tough time in the Ancient Depths, but even with a couple of minimally valued Carcosan modifiers that reduced the game's difficulty, I breezed through the next two biomes without even needing my second chance. So if you do wish to dabble with these modifiers, we recommend testing them out in a previously unlocked level to get an idea of how differently the game feels with them enabled. And those are the 11 things we wish we knew before playing Saros. For more on the game, including our review and an eventual story explainer, stay right here on GameSpot.